The talk now is this horse could win the Stayers Hurdle. If you told me that 12 months ago, I thought you were balmy. Welcome back to the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel in association with Racing TV, and today we bring you a Cheltenham Festival Trials Day preview. All 9 races. We've got the rescheduled cross country and Clarence House Chase. It's going to be some day of racing and I cannot wait to be there.
It's going to be an absolute burn-up, Josh. We're on the train up in the morning from London, Paddington. We're up at all hours to get up to Cheltenham because first race is at 11:40. We're going to be poleaxed by the end of the day, but it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And as always, we will see everyone in the fish afterwards.
Absolutely. The Feathered Fish is the place to be. We have to say a massive thank you for all the support on our recent videos, but we smashed 700 likes in 2 days on the last video.
Yeah, I can't believe it. I told people that it was our Jimmy Greaves and we've gone past Jimmy Greaves. I've been whistling the Jimmy Greaves song the last 50 minutes now that we've seen it, but it's been fantastic. Since we've come together, obviously, on these videos a few years ago, since we've come together in person now the last month or so, we seem to have gone through the roof, and our loyal followers and our new followers at that have been absolutely tremendous in every single bit of it.
Yeah, thank you very much. And everyone's welcome on the Let's Talk Racing YouTube channel. We do also want to mention that LTR Plus, if you don't know what that is, you can sign up. It's an extra video a week. It could be relative news, it could be extra previews, it could be vlogs, anything, but mainly it's live streams ahead of the big meetings. And we're doing one on Friday night ahead of the Cheltenham Trials Day. We're doing one for the Dublin Racing Festival next week. We're doing one for Cheltenham, and that will be where our main Cheltenham preview live stream will be. Obviously, we're going to have Cheltenham preview videos, but the big main live stream will be over on LTR Plus. So do sign up to that if you want to. But let's get into it. 9 races to cover. We need to fire through these. The first race is the Cheltenham Hurdle Trial, and it is tricky to work out who's going to run here. You've got Dixon Cove and Comfort Zone, who finished first and second in the race at Chepstow, the finale. And then you've also got Scriptwriter, who's been impressive, has since gone to Wolverhampton since his Cheltenham win. What do you make of that?
Well, I don't really know what to make of it. I wouldn't be a Wolverhampton expert. At the same stage, he won off a rating in the mid-90s. Now, I'm not dumb enough about the flat to know that that's pretty good, and boasted an RPR of in excess of 100. So he's clearly a horse in good heart, and he's got a good knack of winning recently, which is also a trait I like in these horses.
Yeah, I think this race is interesting. I think it could come down to ground. And I just feel that Scriptwriter, he's flatbred. I'm not sure he's going to love it if it's really tacky. Whether a horse like Comfort Zone, who I suspect will run, because they've got 2 options. They either run here and they possibly win a Grade 2, or they run in Ireland in the Grade 1 of the Dublin Racing Festival, and probably, well, I doubt they're going to reverse the form with Lossiemouth. So I think they will run here, and I think he's going to take the world of beating. You know, he acts on the ground. I think John Joe Jr. will delay hitting the front. I think he hit the front maybe slightly too soon at Chepstow. I think he might be slightly more patient with tactics, and I just think he's going to be very tough to beat. And just on the ground, I think if it was quick ground, Scriptwriter would definitely have a massive chance, but you do have that concern, and also a slight jumping concern with him. He was scruffy at Cheltenham. I think he jumped the 2 down the back very well, but other than that, he was scruffy, he was in tight, he wasn't very fluent. I think that does need to improve to beat a good horse like Comfort Zone.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and we were having a very interesting chat in the office today. I don't want to name drop too much, but Richard Hoyles was in doing the afternoon racing, and we were having a chat about how tacky that ground is going to be. It's just going to be that holding, gluey ground, which is going to be tough to get through. That being said, I think Scriptwriter is the horse to beat here. I think he's done everything right. I thought he's very impressive at the November meeting, and at the same stage, I know what you're saying about Comfort Zone and that he probably hit the front a little bit too soon, but I'd expect Scriptwriter to be able to put away a horse like Dixon Cove at the same stage. So I think they're probably similar enough levels of form coming into this race. That being said, Comfort Zone has a Grade 2 to his name, Scriptwriter doesn't. But I think the 2 of them, I would have it between the 2. I'd be very shocked if the winner doesn't come from outside those 2. You're probably leaning with Comfort Zone. I'd be leaning with Scriptwriter.
The following race, it comes at 12:10, and it is the 2.5-mile Novice's Handicap Chase. Very, very competitive. Tricky to know what's going to run because Gordon Elliott has entered 4 or 5. I actually don't think any of them will run.
No, I don't see it either as well. Potentially a Mars Harper, but I think that he was really just trying to test the water, see what some of these marks got. And just from what we said a week ago about the Goffer, very interesting to see 144. Kim Muir hopes are alive.
He would get into the Kinmure. Obviously, it's 145 or below for the Kinmure. Very interesting. I definitely think they've got that race in mind for him. I like one. I'm not sure what price he's going to be. In fact, I like two, to be honest, but I think one of them may go to Doncaster, so I wanted to mention them both. And the one is That's All Right Gino, who's only been running over 2 miles this season. He's got an Arkle entry, and he does have an entry in the Lightning at Donny, so I'm not sure if he will run at Cheltenham, especially with Snowden sending Garlaw and a couple of other smart ones up to Doncaster, so he might go that way. But he's been running over 2 miles all season in very good company, and he's been staying on every time, and he's been outpaced. And I've been crying. He's been crying out for a step up in trip. Like, he was 3/4 a length behind Boot Hill on his seasonal return. He was third in a hot Newbury Novice Handicap Chase with Frere Darns winning it. Orkin Risk, Balco Coastal was behind him. He was outpaced and hampered and still stayed on pretty well. I think that he will relish Cheltenham, and especially he ran in a Novice Hurdle last year behind Pullagane Green over 2.5 miles in April. He went from the front and he didn't quite get home, but he went a very good clip that day, and I think fences will help him, especially on the front end, getting into a good rhythm. And I think That's All Right Gino could hopefully pull up trumps. He'd be one of my stronger fancies, but if he does go to Donny, I think Fire Dancer is very interesting. Rich Ritchie, Venetia Williams, very strange profile. We only saw him as a 7-year-old, and we hadn't seen him for a long, long time. His previous form was in France. And the last day, I think if he'd been kept up to his work, he'd have won cosily. But Charlie Deutsch nearly got into an awful lot of trouble as the horse semi-stopped, nearly got chinned on the line. But that kind of meant he didn't go up as much as he probably should have. I think he went from 114 to 120, only up £6. I think there might be juice in that mark if he's not out of the handicap. So, yeah, I think he'd take some beating. I think he might be popular as well.
Yeah, I'd say he'll go off a short price, to be honest. I'd say he'd be a 5-2 shot, even though this race is going to be competitive. I quite like Tim Vaughan's horse in this, Dalamois, a horse that I've been keen on all year. I backed it at Kempton when it won. I also then have backed it the last twice when it hasn't collected. So it's just been one of those ones where I think this horse is better than his mark of 129 would suggest. It wouldn't surprise me at all if he's got the natural raw ability to be a 145 horse, and as much as it's been slow enough to come to the boil, I think it will happen at some stage. He's ran well at Cheltenham before in a bumper a few years ago, so he's got a little bit of course form, which is something to like about going into this types of race. I know he's coming here on the back of a fall, but that's very unlike him. He was a pretty assured jumper up until that point. Hopefully that hasn't knocked his confidence too much, and I think he's got a good chance. I suspect as well, coming from Tim Vaughan's yard, you're going to get 8-1 plus, I'd have thought.
Possibly. The following race is the rescheduled cross-country chase. We were meant to see this at the December meeting or November meeting. Anyway, it's been postponed to here, and Delta Work is in there. Do we think he's going to run?
Yeah, I think he'll run, personally. I just think they'll want a spin over the banks, because I know the Cheltenham banks are a little bit easier than Punchestown, but I was at Punchestown when he won the Risk of Thunder, and he absolutely fell in against Singing Banjo and jumped really relatively deplorably for half of it. So I just would wonder whether they'll want a little bit more experience.
But as this is a handicap, he would have to carry top weight. Lumping that weight around so close to the festival, when you have maybe an option to run over 2.5 mile over hurdles in the Boyne, which was what they did with Tiger Roll, it's definitely an option. I suspect they're leaning towards running, but it wouldn't surprise me if he didn't.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I'd understand that. At the same stage, with Tiger Roll, you could go to the Boyne Hurdle. You knew he was going to jump round Cheltenham like a bunny rabbit. As for Delta Work, I know he won the cross-country last year and he jumped well in the main. I think he probably still could do with the match practice, and they used to run Tiger Roll religiously in the November race off top weight, and he almost always got beat, but they were happy enough because he'd come third or fourth, he'd have a nice spin round, and he'd be able to reverse that form come March time. It wouldn't surprise me if Delta Work runs here, and it wouldn't surprise me if Delta Work gets beat here.
Who would he get beat by?
I'm not so sure. Diesel Dallier's a horse I liked a lot last year, but usually comes on for his first run of the season, so that's something to bear in mind. I think a horse that will go off a big price and is a horse to watch out for in the cross country this year is Mortal for Gordon Elliott as well. I thought he ran a very good race back in 4th at the December meeting last year. Hasn't been seen since, but he's the type of horse that will be farmed out the back and I think might make late eye-catching progress, maybe fill the frame, and I think he's going to be 20-1 plus.
I really fancy Back on the Lash in this for Martin Keithley. Delta Work has to give him £23, and I think that is a tough ask, especially as he's won over the banks before at Cheltenham, and he ran a huge race, 3 lengths behind Does He Know in a Grade 3 handicap in December. I think that was a very, very good run, and I just think it's going to be an awful lot from Delta Work to beat him, giving him that weight. Obviously, the tables will turn come the festival, but for me, I think Back on the Lash would be one of my best bets of the day. The following race is the Clarence House, Energumene versus Edwardstone. Energumene?
I'd have to have thought so. It looks a better race than what it was going to be at Ascot last week, because Editor de Gite's in there. At least you know there's going to be a bit of pace.
It would have been brilliant to see Edwardstone win the Desert Orchid.
It would have just given this race a little bit more something to it. But at the same stage, Editor de Gite is now, I know he's not going to win a champion chase, but at least he's there for, in these races on a bit of merit. He's gone and won a Grade 2 and deserves to take his place. He's got good Cheltenham form as well.
He'll go off in front.
He'll go off in front. Sizing Potsy will be in there, so there'll be plenty of pace on. Wouldn't surprise me if Energumene sits 3rd or 4th, waits to pounce. And I just think he's a better horse fundamentally than Edwardstone, and probably just that little bit of a safer jumper as well.
And he's just had a smoother prep. Falling last time would definitely not done Edwardstone any good. The following race is the 2.5 mile Handicap Chase. Big competitive race. Garlaw's going to go to Doncaster for the Sky Bet, so he won't run here. I think there's a couple of question marks around a good few in there, but one that they're persisting with over 2.5 miles, even though we both suggested he didn't stay, and that's kind of how it's looked in 2 runs at Cheltenham this season. Il Ridotto goes again. I think they might ride him differently, change tactic, maybe drop him out. But then do you want to do that? Do you want to be on the pace at Cheltenham? It's tricky. He's at the head of the market, and it's just Paul Nicholls' persistence with 2.5 miles that is the big eye catcher for me here.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a hard one for Harry Cobden. It's going to really test out his mettle as a jockey, because I think for him to get 2.5 miles and have a feasible chance of winning this race, you're going to have to ride him cold, completely stone cold. And at the same stage, it's not really where you want to be in a 20-runner handicap chase. You could have a horse falling in front of you, you could have carnage ensuing. But if anyone's going to do it, it is Cobden at the moment. He's riding out of his skin. I'd agree with you. He's a well-handicapped horse. You feel one of these is going to come his way. Another horse I'd love to see take his chance, just because he's been a decent money spinner for me, but he's been an improving horse, is Gold Cup Bye for the Crawfords and Darrell Jacob. Not sure whether they will run here or not. He is jocked up, but he's been a really improving horse, and what I love about this horse is his ability to jump. I was down at Wexford, he won his beginner's chase, he jumped from fence to fence, absolutely superb, and he's beaten some decent horses at Ayr the last twice, including over 3 miles the last day, when I don't think he really stays 3 miles. He was given a canny ride, and his jumping won the day. So I think back over 2.5 miles, get him into a decent rhythm. He's currently 14-1. I think there's worse each way plays out there.
Yeah, I think I'd just about go Il Ridotto, but it'd be interesting to see if he got beat, would they step down and trip? Would they go for a Grand Annual at the Cheltenham Festival? You'd have to say he'd have a squeak in that. One at a big price as well, I'd like to mention, he might go to Doncaster for the Sky Bet, and it's probably more likely to do that. But Demachine, I think he's on a workable mark, and I think he will go close. I think he's 25-1. In the 225, it's the Cotswold Chase, Protectorate at the top of the market. Noble Yates, the Grand National winner, second favourite. You've got the likes of a Hoisin. Sounds Russian. Where is this going to go?
Well, I think you can go around, but the best form in the race is Protectorate winning the Betfair Chase. I thought he was immense that day. They've kept him fresh since then, which is a good sign. I just wonder, it'll be very interesting to see how this race pans out, and even for their Gold Cup possibilities down the line, because you wouldn't really want for either Protectorate or Noble Yates to have a real slugfest in this, and yet there's every possibility it could end up being that between the two.
It does tend to happen every year, this race.
Yeah, it just seems to always be a tough race. Now, I know Santini won it in nearly slow motion fashion against Bristol de Mai and came back a month and a half later and pipped, well, nearly got Album Photo on the line in the Gold Cup. So it can be done. It's a decent enough trial. I think you'd have to be with Protectorate over Noble Yates. Certainly I would be. And the other lot in there, there's good horses. I really like Sounds Russian as a horse. I think he's a fantastic horse. Bruce Jefferson's done a great job with him. But at the same stage, he's just got to go and prove it. And I don't believe he's really shown what the other two at the top of the market have shown. Ahoy Senor has blotted his copybook too many times for me to go to the well. So probably the boring option, but I'll be back at Protectorate.
I would definitely be with you. Outside, I know A Plus Tard disappointed in the Betfair Chase, but I think that is the best performance over 3 miles this season in Ireland or England. I just think it was better than Conflated, in my personal opinion. Obviously, we've not seen Galloping over 3 miles yet, and I think 13-8 could be a reasonably good price as well. Noble Yates is going to run well. Whether he's going to be good enough to go past Protectorat, I doubt it personally. And then a Hoist in your, like you say, head butter. Can't be for me.
Yeah, it wouldn't be for me. The only thing I would ask about you, because I know some people will be maybe pulling up their nose about taking a short price. Protectorate, I know he came third in the Gold Cup last year, but 3 mile 1 on really tacky ground. Would you have any small quandaries about stamina?
No, not at all.
Jeez, I'd have a few small quandaries on that, to be honest. I think he's a bit of a... I just don't think he would quicken up the way Noble Yates would. I know that's contradicting what I've just said a few seconds ago, but I do think Protectorat is more of a speedy type horse than Noble Yates. And the reason I think he'll win is through his jumping and his travelling through the mid part of the race. As for Noble Yates, tends to kind of get himself behind the 8 ball and then stay back on again. But it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out.
Following race is a fan favourite at the head of the market, Paisley Park, in the Cleeve Hurdle. Like, the talk now is this horse could win the Stayers Hurdle. If you told me that 12 months ago, I thought you were balmy.
Yeah, well, I don't know what price you would have gotten 12 months ago for this horse to win next year's Stayers Hurdle. Probably 50, 66 to 1.
But that's how poor this division is.
Oh, yeah, it's absolutely falling apart. And this horse is going by the wayside here. There's nobody going to run in the race. I might run and pick up a few grand for finishing 6th at this stage. Look, theoretically, on paper, he probably should win this race. As I've said a few times, I maybe don't quite get in on the fanfare, but he's a remarkably good horse. The best form in the race is him winning at Kempton even a month ago, beating Champ and Goshen. Dashel Drasher ran okay in the Relkeel, may be suited by a step up in trip. I looked at the market and I know he didn't run great in the Relkeel, but I think stepping back up to 3 miles, I think it'd be remiss not to have an each-way bet on Botox Has in this. He's got a decent enough record over this course and distance in a couple of runs. He won a big handicap hurdle at Haydock, and I know you're looking at it going, geez, winning a handicap hurdle at Haydock shouldn't make you any sort of challenger in the Cleeve Hurdle. But the way the division is, it kind of does. And he's 14 to 1. I don't think he should be 14 to 1. I think he should be near half that price, 7-8 to 1 shot. And I've had a few quid on him each way, fingers crossed, to at least give the favourite a bit to think about. Because with Paisley Park, whether he wins or not, he's always going to give you a bit of a heart attack.
I think he's the right favourite, but I just do not trust him at all, especially as an older horse. I think he's about even money with most bookmakers. I can't take that. I do like the Relkeel, and I like Dashel Drasher, who ran very, very well, giving weight away to Marie's Rock, over 2.5 miles, a speedier type, and he's done nothing wrong this season. He's a Grade 1 winner. Previously, he finished a valiant second to Noble Yates over fences at Aintree, and I just think that a step up in trip over hurdles, I think this would bang up his street. He'll go from the front, and they give you a really good run for your money. 9 to 2, I think he's a very fair price. And with Paisley Park's possible mental fragilities or where he hits a flat spot, I just wouldn't trust him completely. The penultimate race is the 2.5 mile Ballymore Novices Hurdle. It's a trial for the Ballymore at the festival. And this is a really, really tricky race to get a handle on. Henry II in there. We've all been caught in there. Pembroke's favourite, first time over 2.5 miles. Tricky.
Yeah, it's a race, to be honest, Josh, that I don't really fancy anything.
No.
It's a very hard race. We were talking about it in work today, and I was even throwing Blenkensop at you at one stage, which you can't be doing that, really. I think I came down to the premise that really, I assume that Nigel Twiston Davis will run one of either Adalco Bahui or We've All Been Caught, and that would probably be the horse I would side with. I think the two of them are pretty decent horses. They're both quite similar in terms of you feel they're going to be better chasers down the line. There may be a tad immature, the two of them, but at least they bring some decent form to the table. And I think it's probably underplayed how good a record Nigel Twiston Davis has at these types of meetings at Cheltenham. The November meeting, December meeting, New Year's Day these days. He usually goes home with a winner at some stage. And I think maybe whatever one he runs, should I say, he'd be the one I'd back, whether it's We've All Been Caught or Adelco Bowie.
Yeah, I agree. I like the form from We've All Been Caught. And even the second place to him the last day, Rock My Way, who's also 6-1 for the River Don, but is entered here. He's 14-1. I think if he goes here, he is a bigger price than he possibly should be. And if he was with more of a fashionable trainer, he'd probably be shorter. I think he ran very well for his rules debut. I agree. We've all been caught. You can ride him aggressively. You know he's going to stay. I think he'll adopt very similar tactics to what they did on New Year's Day. And 11-2, I'd probably side with him. I love Henry II, but he doesn't strike me as a horse that's going to love Cheltenham.
No, I tend to agree with that. That being said, he was impressive at Sandown, and be interesting to see how what that form's worth, because I'd say an hour prior to that in the River Don, we'll see my lad Maximilian run, and hopefully he runs well. I don't know how well he'll run. He's up against a few decent horses, but that will test that Grade 2 form at least, and that may give Henry II a nice boost, or well, hopefully that would be a great thing if it did. But no, I just do get that slight impression that he mightn't be at his best, and I'd like to take on Pembroke at the prices. I don't think he's achieved too much from his 2 wins in relatively facile fashion in low grade contests.
Yeah, the 2 racetracks that he's won at the last 2 times, I think it was Ludlow and Wetherby. Stepping up to 2.5 mile and a Grade 2 at Cheltenham is chalk and cheese. Now in the lucky last 2 mile handicap hurdle, I think we both agree on this, don't we? Punctuation for Fergal O'Brien, who won at the December meeting. Is he not just going to follow up that success? Like it's a tricky race to get ahead on. I like Campron, I like Hacker de Places, but are they going to go to the Betfair Hurdle? Are they going to run? Long Stay, the other second string for Fergal, could run well. But Punctuation, you know he likes Cheltenham. I think he was only put up roughly £10 for his win, so you think he'd be competitive again?
Yeah, well, I'm just slightly surprised that the handicapper hasn't really had a right tonk on Punctuation at some stage. He keeps winning races remarkably easily, and I know he went up £10, but there was almost premise for him to go up more. He won with so much in hand, and again, a little bit like Nigel Twiston Davis, how many times you come to these types of meetings at Cheltenham and Fergal O'Brien and Paddy Brennan end up walking away with something, and this looks like their trump card on the entire card. So fingers crossed there'll be a winning finish, and Punctuation, I think he'll be short enough. I think he'll be 3-1, 7-2 for a 15-20 runner race. It's not going to be a great price, but it's a working man's price at the same stage, and fingers crossed he'll pay for a beer or 2 afterwards.
Fingers crossed for a great day at Cheltenham. With regards to best bets, you can include some at Cheltenham or a couple of race courses elsewhere this weekend. I like 2 elsewhere and 2 at Cheltenham. Rambo T in the 122 at Utoxeter. If he runs, I think he'll take a good bit of beating. And the Noel Feely Syndicate has been flying at the moment. They've got a horse called Awesome Foursome who won a bumper. He's had 3 very quiet runs in maiden hurdles and novice hurdles. He's got a really low handicap mark. I think he will go in this weekend. He's entered up twice. I'll link it on screen now so you can see where he's entered. I think he could take some stopping when the money is down. And the 2 at Cheltenham are like, if That's All Right Gino is declared, which I would definitely wait for, if he's declared for Cheltenham, I think he's got a great chance in the 2.5 mile novice handicap chase. And then I also like Back on the Lash in the cross country.
Yeah, well, 3 from me, 2 from Cheltenham, 1 from Naas on Sunday. Hopefully get a winner on Sunday when we're resting away here, grazing, I suspect. But the 2 at Cheltenham, I really like Scriptwriter in the first. He was the best bet back at the November meeting. He collected a 9-2 that day. Hopefully he does something similar. And I like Botox Has in the Cleeve. I've actually convinced myself so much that I think he's a really good price at 14-1. It's such a windy race. I would be very surprised if he doesn't run very well. And in the front 3. And the 1 at Naas, keeping right back to my roots, back to the good man, Barry Connell down the road from me back home, and he runs Low Style in the second last, the Handicap Hurdle at Naas. He came 3rd at Christmas time. He'd won prior to that. I think he's a good horse. He's well handicapped. He ran a funny race at Christmas, got well behind, stayed on well. More positive ride from Mikey O'Sullivan. I think he'll go very close.
There we go. We do hope you've enjoyed this Cheltenham Festival Trials Day preview. And we hope that if you're going, you have a fantastic day. And do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. If we could hit that like button, it massively helps out the channel. And we'll see you soon.